want to go back to this one from Smells and Bells. Just real quick. I do want to be respectful of your time also, Father Ron. So
But I would like to see this also, if that's okay, Alex. I was
yeah,
actually hoping you would bring this up.
good. Okay. Uh Here, oh, they write like a novel. Okay, it's not that long. Some clarity on my recent short about the polyglot Cardinal Ximenes. Luther didn't remove books from the Bible and Trent didn't add them. That is ridiculous. Before Trent and its addition of the anathema clause, it was always an... No, it was not. Hold on. I got a Protestant source for you to refute this, like, easily.
So while you're doing that, I'll read this ahead of time here.
This is ridiculous. That's, like, so not correct. Like, the most famous Protestant historian, Philip Schaff, refutes Wes Huff on this. This is how evangelical Wes Huff is. I'll just read it so that people know what he's saying. Some clarity on my recent short about the polyglot and Cardinal Ximenes. Luther didn't remove books from the Bible and Trent didn't add them. And if you guys don't know, Trent, the Council of Trent was in response to the Reformation. This is like 1500s. Before Trent and its addition of the anathema clause, it was always an open conversation. The 66 is what everyone agreed upon. The question was about the Apocrypha, a term not invented, but clarified on by Athanasius in his 39th festal letter in AD 367 to describe the other books of the Old Testament outside of the 39. If the 73 book canon was, as many in the comments to my original post want to reductionalistically claim, which is like nice, what kind of word is that?
That's a
settled
fancy word.
$100. Why are you using a $50 word when a $5 one will do? I don't know. A settled issue going back. This is like basic writing 101. This makes me question. I don't know. Anyway, a settled issue going back centuries, then you wouldn't have the Jeromes, Athanasiuses, Cyrils, Gregory the Greats. Okay, first of all of these people disagree with what Wes Huff believes. Ximenes and the Cajetans of the world all openly discussing and disagreeing with various deuterocanonicals in their inclusion versus exclusions as inspired canon. These aren't randoms, they're saints, bishops, popes, cardinals, and doctors of the church, which he doesn't actually believe they're saints, bishops, popes, cardinals, and doctors of the church, because he doesn't actually hold their interpretation of scripture in higher regard than his own and his reformers' interpretation of the scriptures.
Unless it's convenient.
Yeah, this is just verbal credence and lip service. He doesn't actually think that St. Gregory of Nazianzus is a doctor of the church. If he actually thought that St. Gregory of Nazianzus was a doctor of the church and he had to believe what St. Gregory of Nazianzus teaches theologically, he could not actually be a Reformed Baptist or whatever nonsense denomination he is. I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear how close the vote on their inclusion in an official list attached to an anathema was at Trent. At the Council of Trent, considerable debate took place on whether a distinction should be made between two classes of books, canonical and apocryphal, or whether three classes should be identified: acknowledged books, disputed books of the New Testament, later generally received, and apocrypha of the Old Testament. Finally, in 1546, by a vote of 24 to 15 with 16 abstentions, oh my gosh, this is what the Roman Catholics do. They'll just put in a bunch of irrelevant facts to bog you down and make this as long as possible to show off how smart they are. This doesn't make you smart, this makes you dumb, because you're talking about facts that aren't even relevant to the point at issue. Anyway, sorry, there's a venting a little bit. My lawyer side is like, this is horrible writing, first of all. Second of all, it's not even relevant to the point at issue. Finally, on the 8th of April, 1546, by a vote of 24 to 15 with 16 abstentions, the council issued a decree in which, for the first time in the history of the church, the question of the contents of the Bible was made an absolute article of faith and confirmed by an anathema. Okay, this is ridiculous because he thinks that Protestants were the church. First of all, this doesn't even make sense in his paradigm to say this. Also, you have all the churches in the East saying for the very first time in the history of the church, the question in the history of the church, this was an absolute article of faith. He doesn't even believe that this was a valid church. Like, what is he talking about? First of all, he's not saying what he means to say. So he's just a bad communicator. And I think I have this citation actually in a very, like one of my first videos that I posted on Sola Scriptura. Let me find it here. Actually, so that way I can literally show you guys the quote, so there's no, I'm not making it up.
So while you're looking, I'll ask you later
Yeah.
when you're
No,
done.
please,
Sorry.
please.
What's this guy's MO? Like, I know I know a little bit about him. I see some of the things he says, but I don't know. I know he sort of came to the fore because he had some sort of a debate or something like that, but now he won't debate anybody. And so what's he trying to do out there? What's his?
I think he's
what's
trying
his-
to make everybody a Reformed Baptist, but he
So
won't
just
actually
like-
debate anyone that would really bring meaningful scrutiny to his views.
Yeah, because I know he's some sort of a scripture scholar or some sort of a historical. He does history, it looks like, and so it looks to me
Yeah,
like
I think he
done
has
nothing but
a
scripture, right?
he has I think I don't know if he's completed it, but he's working on his doctoral degree in like text criticism. I think ancient texts.
Okay.
So he does like translation work stuff. But anyway, so this quote right here that I have on the screen is from Philip Schaff, who's like the most famous Protestant church historian, period. This is his take on like what happened with the canon, right? So he says, in the Western Church, the canon of both testaments was closed at the end of the 4th century through the authority of Jerome, who wavered, however, between critical doubts and the principle of tradition, and more especially of Augustine, who firmly followed the Alexandrian canon of the Septuagint and the preponderant tradition in reference to the disputed Catholic epistles and Revelation, though he himself in some places inclines to consider the Old Testament Apocrypha as deuterocanonical books, bearing a subordinate authority. The Council of Hippo in 393, and the third, according to another reckoning, the 6th Council of Carthage in 397, under the influence of Augustine, who attended both, fixed the Catholic canon of the Holy Scriptures, including the Apocrypha of the Old Testament, and prohibited the reading of other books in the churches, excepting the Acts of the Martyrs on their memorial days. These two African councils, so Hippo and Carthage, with Augustine, give 44 books as the canonical books of the Old Testament. And here you have the list, including Ecclesiasticus, Tobit, Judith, 2 books of Maccabees.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what Philip Schaff says. Here's his conclusion. Okay, so he gave you all the facts and the narrative. Here's his conclusion. This decision of the Transmarine Church was subject to ratification, and the concurrence of the Roman See it received when Innocent I and Gelasius I repeated the same index of biblical books. This canon remained undisturbed till the 16th century and was sanctioned by the Council of Trent at its 4th session. So you have literally the most famous Protestant church historian saying that there was a canon. It was established at the end of the 3rd century or beginning of the 4th century, whatever it was. I think end of the
fourth.
yeah. So, and it was undisturbed. He says undisturbed until the 16th century and was sanctioned by the Council of Trent. So there was canonically something laid down, and yes, it was changed.
Like how he said undisturbed.
Undisturbed. Just don't touch it.
It was disturbed. Like, I love that actually.
Yes.
But then Wes Huff basically said the opposite then.
Yes. He's saying, no, it was always 66 books, and they added books at the Council of Trent. It's like, no, they had it already. Yes, it was not an open discussion.
It became open when somebody disturbed it.
Yes, you have canons, church law saying that like these are the books. So yes, so there you go, smells and bells. There's your answer. That's what I think about Wes Huff's analysis. It's garbage. That's what it is. That is something you can use as toilet paper properly. That's it.